Hi, my name is David Diley and I'm with the Wolcott Group. I am one of the developers of the Automatic Deployment Toolkit, otherwise known as ADT. The primary function of this application is to upgrade any version of the Lotus Notes client to the latest version of the client. This brief video presentation will illustrate how ADT could manage one of the complexities an organization may face during the Lotus Notes upgrade project. During the initial planning stages of the upgrade project, an organization may discover that many of the Lotus Notes clients have been installed or moved to a non-standard folder structure. One reason may be that the data folders were stored on a network file server to help facilitate a non-supported Notes roaming solution. After numerous problems with this setup, the organization wants to move the data folders back to the user's local hard drive and use a better roaming solution such as Wolcott's Client Sync. Another reason may be earlier versions of Lotus Notes had different default folder location, and as the organization had upgraded from previous versions of Lotus Notes, the original file structures were left intact. An organization may not have had the strict standards on the Lotus Notes folder locations. They may have just moved the Lotus Notes clients to a different folder structure without doing a reinstall of the software. This could cause a workstation to contain multiple Notes INI files with only one actually being used by the Lotus Notes client. This in itself can cause issues during the upgrade process. Another problem may be the Notes registry entries may be incorrect. This also causes problems during the upgrade. How does ADT solve the potential problems? With an ADT plugin called the Notes Mover. The ADT Notes Mover plugin will first determine where the current Lotus Notes program and data folders are located. This can be done by examining the Lotus Notes registry entries and then determining the correct folder locations. If you suspect these entries may be incorrect, ADT can be configured to ignore the registry entries and search for all Notes INI files located on the user's desktop or on the designated network drive. ADT will then determine which Notes INI file is being used by the Notes client by examining the Notes INI file's last modified date, and then using these Notes INI file, it could then determine the correct location of the Notes program and data folders. If ADT determines that the folders are located in the correct file structure, the Notes Mover will do nothing, and ADT will then proceed to upgrade the Lotus Notes client software. If, on the other hand, ADT determines the files are not in the correct location, the Notes Mover will then move the Notes files to the correct folder structure after ADT verifies the files have been moved successfully. ADT will update both the Notes INI and the Notes registry entries, thus ensuring a more successful upgrade. I will now show you how to configure ADT for the Notes Mover plugin. For this presentation, I have already configured ADT to perform a Lotus Notes client upgrade. I will just show you how to configure options needed to configure the Notes Mover plugin. I open up Admin Views, Configuration Documents. The first configuration document that we need to configure is the installation type document. Under the installation location, we choose as specified below. When we choose this is where we choose the file class that ADT will use as the new file folders for the Notes client. Under here we have C Programs Files, IBM, Lotus Notes, and for the data folder we have C Program Files, IBM, Lotus Notes Data. The next document we need to modify is the user option document. Under the Installation tab, we need to verify that we have chosen the correct installation type document. Under this, we'll see that our new file paths are displayed. The next tab we need to click on is the Upgrade Plugins. Here we need to enable the Notes Mover. As we see, when the Notes Mover is enabled, the INI cleanup option is automatically enabled. Under the INI cleanup options, we have several options. The first option is delete files. This is by default set to no. This instructs ADT to rename all of the unused Notes INI files it finds. If this option is set to yes, the unused Notes INI files will be deleted. The next option, ignore registry. By default, ignore registry is set to no. This will instruct ADT to use Notes registry entries to determine where the Notes program folder and data folders reside. For demonstration purposes, we will set this to yes, since we know the registry entries could be wrong. ADT will then look for the latest modified Notes INI and use that file to determine the correct current Notes folders. We can then configure ADT to search a list of map network drives for the current Notes INI. For this demonstration, I am going to instruct ADT to look in the user's P drive. This is all that is needed to configure the Notes Mover plugin in ADT. I will now switch over to the Notes 7 client on a Windows XP machine. As you can see, the Lotus Notes client is installed under the folder C, Lotus Notes, and the data folder is stored under C, Lotus Notes Data. Examining the registry entries, we find the Lotus Notes entries under the H-key local machine. For this demo, I purposely modified the data path and the path entries with incorrect values. This will demonstrate ADT's ability to find the correct file paths without using the Windows registry. I will now open up the message client installation sent by ADT and launch the Lotus Notes installation. I click on the button. I click on Close Lotus Notes. ADT will now close the Lotus Notes client. I now click on the Install button. This will launch the installation. Instantly you see ADT searching for the latest and greatest Notes INI file, the latest modified. It has found the correct path and is now moving the Notes data directory to the correct path specified in the user type document. As you can see, to the user, this is a one-step process. Now ADT is moving the Notes program files to the new location. Now ADT is updating the Windows registry entries for Lotus Notes, including searching for any other keys that may have the old path file. Lotus Notes is now starting the actual client installation. I will now pause to allow the Notes clients to install. This usually takes about 10 minutes depending on your hardware. The installation has completed without any errors. Using Windows Explorer, we see that indeed the Notes program files and folders have been moved. We can also see that the registries now reflect the correct data folder paths. We can now launch the new Lotus Notes 8.5 client. As you can see, the first time you launch Lotus Notes 853, a lot of the local databases are being updated, so this takes a little longer than usual. And the user has its workspace back. This concludes the video for the ADT Notes